Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to get under the surface of those big ideas and texts that, well, really shape how we see things.
That's right.
And today, we are definitely diving deep. We're taking on Herman Melville's Moby-Dick.
The big one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's got this reputation, doesn't it? Like this huge, daunting classic, maybe a bit of a literary mountain to climb.
Yeah, people definitely feel intimidated by it sometimes.
But our mission today is to show you it's more than just a whale of a tale. It's actually packed with some really surprising, timeless stuff.
Absolutely.
We're drawing from excerpts of Whale of a Tale, Moby-Dick Unveiled, and the goal here is, well, to pull out the most important bits, the real nuggets of insight.
Sort of make it accessible.
Yeah, make it accessible, show why it's still considered such a cornerstone. We'll look at the history behind it, the characters, unforgettable characters, the big themes, and why it, still matters. Yeah. Basically, a shortcut to feeling like you really get this epic. So let's start there. What was going on in the world when Melville actually wrote this? I mean, how much did the time period shape Moby-Dick?
Oh, profoundly. It's easy to get lost in the philosophy of the book, but you have to remember it's grounded in, well, the pretty harsh realities of mid-19th century America.
Okay.
And Melville himself, he was a really searching kind of writer. He lived it. And he was writing when whaling wasn't just like a job, it was a massive global industry.
Right, powering lamps and everything.
Exactly. It literally lit the world back then. And it was incredibly dangerous, high risk, high reward. The ships, the hunt itself, the sheer scale of it, that wasn't just window dressing for Melville. It was this living, breathing, often really violent engine driving the story.
So the industry itself is almost like another character.
In a way, yeah. It shapes everything. The danger, the isolation, the crew dynamics.
And I know that era, it also had some interesting ideas floating around, philosophically speaking. Did things like transcendentalism play into Melville's thinking at all?
Oh, absolutely. You had thinkers like Emerson and Thoreau, big names in transcendentalism. They were all about intuition, the individual finding the divine in nature with a capital N.
Seeing nature as fundamentally good or spiritual.
Right. And Melville knew these ideas. He engaged with them. But here's where it gets really interesting. Moby-Dick kind of pushes back against that optimism.
How so?
Well, where the transcendentalists might see benevolence in nature, Melville often shows us something much more chaotic, indifferent, maybe even hostile through the whale.
Through Moby-Dick himself.
Exactly. The sheer power, the unknowability of the whale. It really questions humanity's place in the universe, our control over things. It's a darker, more complex view than a lot of his contemporaries had.
Okay, that makes sense. So he's using the ideas of his time, but also kind of turning them on their head.
Precisely. It creates this incredible tension.
So with that backdrop, the whaling industry, these big philosophical questions, let's get to the voyage itself. What's the basic story here without giving too much away?
Right. So at its heart, Moby-Dick is about a whaling ship, the Pequod. It sets sail on what should be a standard commercial trip, hunt whales, make money.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but it very quickly stops being about that because the captain, Captain Ahab, well, he has other plans.
Ahab, a name that carries some weight.
It does. He's this formidable, intense figure, and he basically hijacks the voyage. He's obsessed with finding one specific whale, the legendary white whale, Moby-Dick.
Why this one whale?
Because Moby-Dick is the whale that took his leg on a previous voyage. So for Ahab, this isn't about profit anymore. It's personal. It's about revenge. And the whole novel becomes this relentless, almost mad pursuit of this single creature across the world's oceans.
Wow. Okay, so Ahab's obsession is the engine driving things.
Yeah.
But he's got a whole crew with him, right? They can't all be on board with this suicide mission.
Exactly. And the crew is fascinating. They represent all sorts of different perspectives on Ahab's quest.
So who are the key players we should know?
Well, first, there's our narrator, Ishmael. He's kind of our way into the story. He's a bit of a wanderer, maybe a bit philosophical himself, looking for adventure, maybe escape. He signs onto the Pequod almost on a whim.
So we see things through his eyes?
Mostly, yes. He gives us the details of whaling life, but also these big reflections on life, the universe, everything. Then, of course, you have Captain Ahab. He's just magnetic, consumed by this need for vengeance against the whale. It's more than just anger. It's almost metaphysical for him.
A force of nature himself, almost.
You could say that his obsession pulls everyone else into its vortex. But then you have contrasts, like Queequeg.
I remember the name, the harpooner.
That's him,
Yeah.
a highly skilled harpooner from the South Seas. He forms this really deep, unexpected friendship with Ishmael early on. And through Queequeg, Melville explores things like, cultural understanding, prejudice, and this idea of shared humanity.
A very important relationship in the book.
Crucial. And then there's Starbuck. He's the first mate. Very pragmatic, dutiful, religious even. He sees the madness in Ahab's quest. He represents reason, maybe conscience, trying to push back against Ahab's fanaticism.
So he's the voice of sanity, in a way.
Often, yes. He understands the danger, the impiety of it. He's constantly wrestling with his duty to the captain versus his own moral compass. And finally, Moby-Dick, the white whale himself.
The whale. Is he just a whale, or?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? He's definitely a real physical creature of immense power, terrifying power. But he becomes this massive symbol. He means different things to different people.
Like what?
To Ahab, he's the embodiment of all evil, or maybe the indifferent malice of the universe. To others, maybe just a valuable commodity or a force of nature to the reader. Well, that's part of the journey, figuring out what the whale represents for you. He's this huge, white, blank screen onto which everyone projects their fears and desires.
Okay, so it's the symbolism, the deeper layers, that really make this more than an adventure story.
Exactly. That's where the book gets its enduring power. Beneath the chase, there's this incredibly rich tapestry of themes.
Let's unpack some of those.
Yeah.
What are the big ideas Melville is grappling with here?
Well, what's fascinating is how this single-minded pursuit of the whale lets Melville explore so much. The most obvious theme is obsession, right?
Ahab's obsession, yeah.
Yeah, but it's more than just Ahab being obsessed. Melville digs into how obsession works, how focusing everything on one single enemy, one goal, can twist you, consume you, become more destructive than the thing you're hunting.
That definitely feels relevant.
Totally. And that leads right into revenge. The corrosive nature of wanting payback, how it can annihilate not just the target, but the person seeking it.
It becomes self-destructive.
Absolutely. And then there are bigger, more philosophical questions woven in, like fate versus free will.
Ah, the age-old question.
Right. Are these characters, especially Ahab, doomed to follow a predetermined path, or are they making choices that lead them to their end? Melville plays with that tension constantly. He doesn't give easy answers.
Which makes it more powerful, I guess.
I think so. And then there's the huge theme of man versus nature. But it's not just, storms and survival. It's about the sheer, overwhelming indifference of nature to human struggles, human ambition.
The ocean doesn't care about Ahab's quest.
Not one bit. The whale, the sea, they exist on this vast, powerful scale that dwarfs human concerns, which, again, was a pretty stark contrast to the more optimistic, human-centric views of the time.
Challenging the idea that humanity is the center of everything.
Exactly. And all of this feeds into a deep existential inquiry. What's our purpose? What does it all mean? Are we alone in this vast, scary universe? Ishmael, in particular, circles around these questions again and again.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot to pack into one novel, even a big one. How does Melville actually do that? How does he weave all this philosophy into a story about hunting a whale? What's his style like?
Well, his style is unique. It really is. It was pretty groundbreaking for the time. He mixes these incredibly thrilling, visceral scenes of the whale hunt.
The action part.
Yeah, the adventure stuff. But then he'll suddenly shift into these long, reflective, philosophical chapters, or famously, these almost scientific-sounding essays about whales and whaling.
Right, I've heard about those chapters. Some people find them dense.
They can be. The chapters on, say, the classification of whales or the details of processing blubber. But the thing is, they're not just info dumps. No, they often work metaphorically, like all this human effort to measure, classify, understand the whale. It mirrors our larger attempt to grasp the ungraspable, to impose order on a chaotic universe. It shows the limits of our knowledge.
Okay, so even the boring parts have a point.
A very deep point, usually. And then there's the symbolism, which we touched on with the whale. It's everywhere. The sea, the ship, the doubloon nailed to the mast, everything carries potential meaning. And Melville often leaves that meaning ambiguous, forcing you, the reader, to grapple with it.
So he doesn't spell it all out.
Definitely not. It's not a neat allegory where X means Y. It's much richer, more complex than that. It's that combination of adventure, deep thought, scientific detail, and profound symbolism that makes the style so distinct and honestly so powerful.
Which brings us back to something we touched on earlier, For all this brilliance, Moby-Dick has this reputation,
Yeah.
that it's hard.
The difficult book label.
Right. People hear the name, maybe they tried it once and bounced off those whaling chapters. Why do you think it gets that rap? And more importantly, why push through? Why is it worth the effort today?
Well, let's be honest. It can be challenging. There's no getting around it. The sheer length is one thing. Those digressions we talked about, they do break the narrative momentum sometimes.
Can't up the chase.
They do. And the language itself. It's 19th century prose. It can be dense, highly rhetorical, filled with allusions. It demands a certain kind of attention, a willingness to slow down and engage with it.
So it asks something of the reader.
It definitely does. But, and this is the crucial part, the rewards are immense. It's profoundly worth experiencing precisely because it tackles those huge, universal questions we talked about, questions that haven't gone away.
So what are the big takeaways for someone reading it now in the 21st century?
I mean, think about obsession. We live in a world saturated with potential obsessions, right? Personal goals, political causes, social media echo chambers. The novel is this powerful warning about what happens when a single focus blinds you to everything else, to human connection, to reason.
The cost of fanaticism.
Exactly. And the theme of man versus nature, it feels more relevant than ever, doesn't it? With climate change, environmental crises, Melville's depiction of nature as this vast, powerful, unpredictable force that humanity tries and often fails to control or dominate. That hits hard today. It reminds us of our place, maybe.
And the existential stuff.
Still completely relevant. The search for meaning, confronting the unknown, feeling small in a big universe. These are perennial human struggles. Moby-Dick doesn't offer easy answers, but it explores these questions with incredible depth and honesty. It's about the human condition, really. The ambition, the fear, the search for connection and understanding in a world that often feels indifferent.
So it's not just about a whale.
It's so much more than just a whale. It offers these timeless lessons about resilience, about the dangers of unchecked certainty, and about the beauty and the terror of the world we live in. The literary ambition alone is staggering.
It really sounds like it. So we started out talking about this book's reputation, maybe being intimidating, but we've journeyed through its history, met the crew, explored these huge themes.
From the docks of Nantucket to the depths of the Pacific and the depths of the human soul.
Exactly. This deep dive, hopefully, has chipped away at that intimidation factor and really shown the core insights of Moby-Dick. Made it feel less like just a classic on a shelf and more like this vital, compelling story.
Yeah, a story that still speaks to us.
Absolutely. And as you think about Ahab's relentless chase, his need to conquer this one specific whale, and Ishmael's journey just trying to make sense of it all, maybe consider this. If Moby-Dick isn't just an animal, but maybe represents those huge unknowable things we all face, challenges, fears, the mysteries of life itself, what is Melville really suggesting about how we should approach them? Is the wisdom in the relentless pursuit? Or is there sometimes more wisdom in acceptance and understanding our limits? And maybe, what are the white whales that drive